This is online journalism. My name is Xavier with an X. Today we're going to talk about sound setup. Yep, how do we wire our gear to have great sound for a web reporter? This is lesson number 14 of our online journalism and TV production course. So let's go and start. Action! Well, today we're going to talk about how do we wire our gear for a web report. And that depends a lot on the number of people that we have and the equipment. First, let me explain very fast what is a mixer. Okay? I have a medium-sized mixer here. It's very heavy. Wow. This is one of the mixers we have here in our facility, and this is medium to small mixer because you'll find in the TV stations some that are like wall to wall. So in this mixer we have the inputs where we put the microphones and the lines and the music and whatever thing we need here in these inputs, and then whoops, we turn those knobs on and on, depending on the volume, etc. And we have sliders here for the mixing and the output on these final two things. So a mixer, as you can imagine, mixes signals and then outputs signals to a recorder, and in this case, onto a camera. Obviously, you won't be taking this one on a normal shoot. You'll have a portable mixer. And whew, we have our little portable mixer here. It's a very nice and small, compact. Let me take it out of the pack here. Okay. So here it is, our little mixer. It's basically the same thing. It has 3 inputs for 3 microphones or 3 lines. It has the knobs here, so you can regulate the volume. If it's too high, you put it down. If it's too low, you put it up. And this is the final or master output and the 2 lines that go to the camera. Okay, so we have it here on our little board, our mixing diagram. Let's take a look. You can see this is the camera, this is the mixer, this is the reporter mic, and this is like the wireless mic, okay? So let's say in a recommended setup, you will take the microphone and plug it here, one of the inputs of the mixer. Also the wireless or wired lavalier will go into the mixer. Then here you mix, you regulate volume, etc. And then it will have basically 2 lines going in the camera. So this is like the recommended and everyday setup. But the problem is that you need somebody dedicated to the mixer and dedicated to the sound full time in a production. So this takes me to the next step or the next idea. But what if you don't have that possibility, if you have a small crew? Okay, that is a good question, my friend. Let's say you have 3 people in your crew or less. 3 people or less. So those 3 people would have the following jobs. Let's say guy number 1 or gal number 1 will be, let's say, the reporter, but we can also call him or her the director or the producer. So the guy in charge of coordinating everything, the one that is coming to the interview and talking to the secretary and telling the mayor that we arrived and where. The coordinator, the production coordinator, but you can call it journalist, you can call it director or producer. The second guy, obviously, is the person in charge of the camera. I mean, there has to be a full-time guy in charge of the camera. You cannot leave the camera unattended in the first place. And we're talking about 3 or less crew size. And the number 3, poor number 3, would be like a general assistant doing everything else. Parking the car, bringing the tripod, bringing a spare battery, and helping with the sound. So he cannot dedicate full time to the sound. I mean, he can help with the sound, but he is not 100% on sound. Okay? So this is 3 or less crew members. And let's use the blue color. And the other alternative would be 4 or more. 4 or more. Okay. If we have 4 or more, then things change because we will have, let's say, the journalist or director. We'll have the cameraman. Okay. Here we can have a full-time sound person because sound is very important. But we do have 4 or more. So we have here the sound person. And number 4, because it's 4 or more, will be the general assistant. Now, with 4 or more, we can have somebody dedicated to the mixer and sound in general, full time. Okay? Let's go to the diagram again, okay? So here in our diagram, this will work very nicely for 4 or more because there's somebody in charge of the mixer. But with 3 or less, we have to forget the mixer. And we'll do the reporter mic directly to the camera, the wireless mics directly to the camera. And we get rid of the mixer because we cannot have a full-time person with a mixer. And that. Now, how do we do this without putting sound in danger? Oops! We will have in every camera at least 2 knobs on the main channel 1 and 2 of the camera. Sometimes we have 4 knobs, but in general, at least 2, 1 and 2. And we can have the people with the microphones count to 10 or count to 20, so we will make the necessary provisions depending on their volume. So if number 1 is like here, so we put it here. If this is lower, then we put it here or whatever. So we do have some control because we graduate, because we turn the knobs depending on their volume. Okay? So this is not going to be like the mixer where the guy is every second with the knobs. No, this is in a general sense. So we graduate, we measure the volume of number 1 and we put it as good as we can, and number 2 also. And it won't change much during the recording. And we will have, obviously, take the headphones out here, and our assistant will have the earphones on, and he will be listening to the sound and very carefully making some adjustments on the camera so he doesn't move the camera during the interview, but he can make a little teeny-weeny adjustments if necessary, but not every second, just if he sees, because he's hearing the sound, so he has control of the sound, okay? And what if we have more than two? Well, we always have the reporter mic and we always have the boom that we can switch from one to another. So this works well with a crew of three or less, and it also works well with a 2 or 3, I would recommend 2 or 3 only guys interview in the interview at the same time. But generally, in online journalism, in web reporting, we don't do a whole bunch of things. Obviously, if you're interviewing 5 people, then you do need a sound person. But I mean, let's be serious. I mean, you're not going to interview a whole bunch of, you're going to do a whole big documentary with lots of people with 2 or 3. So normally, let's say 95% of the time or even more, you will be only interviewing 1 or 2 people at a time. So this kind of crew with 3 or less is, let's say, the most used in web reporting. I assure you. Now, if you're going to do something more difficult, well, you have to get more crew. But with this, it works very nicely, and you don't have a guy only dedicated to sound because you can't afford it. But you're not sacrificing the sound. That's very important. Another thing, some people are recording now with digital sound recorders, like very small ones. And in order to do that, well, you have to have a clapper like this one, so you can synchronize sound with the video. Okay, so this is basically what this does. You put it in front of the camera and you clap. That's why it's called a clapper. And if by any chance you don't have a clapper, they're not so expensive, but if you don't have a clapper, you can clap with your hands. That's why it's called a clapper. So you clap. You get in front of the camera and you. So the moment the hands close and you hear the clap, you are synchronizing. Obviously, you can't stop the recording until the end of the interview. Or each time you stop recording, then you have to clap again. Now, I don't recommend this for web reporting or online journalism because it will take more time to edit, because you have to synchronize in the editing room the sound with the picture. I would recommend that for a documentary, for something that you have a lot of time to edit. But web reporting and online journalism, you should be able to edit very fast, pop, 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 and have it in the afternoon on the air or on the web. So I would recommend go directly to the camera. Okay? Another thing, I was telling you about the use of the boom microphone and this really nice windscreen. And even though it's a great thing, well, maybe you don't have the budget to have the windscreen. And when we were beginning the company, we didn't either have any big budgets. So we used my old socks. And it works really almost the same. Let's not say 100%, but let's 85, 90% as good as the windscreen. Now, I would recommend that you first wash your old socks. That's a good idea. Now, how do you put them? Very easily. You put a lot of layers of socks. Let's say like 3 or 4. I would recommend 4. And it's just very simple. You put it in. If you have old socks with holes in it, then you put them in the first layers, and then in the last layers, you have the new ones, or not so old ones. And if they're black, they look nice. So I put them here and here twice. And I'm just doing it very fast so you can see in real life. But I mean, you can do it with more time and it will look much better than what I'm doing here. So just up and forth, back and forth. It has 2 layers here. Doesn't look so bad. And let's go with layer number 3. Ta-dum, ta-dum, ta-dum. And if you don't tell anyone that you're using old socks, they might not even notice. Okay, so there's 3 layers. And let's get the 4th layer. Maybe the 4th one is the one you have to be more careful so it looks nicer. Wow. So basically what you have to cover are the inputs of the microphone, you know, the little holes on the sides. And, well, I did it very fast. And it's not perfect, but if you do it with more time and more carefully, and it works really great. I mean, it does work. It stops the wind. We've done it, we used that many times before we had the budget to buy the other stuff. Okay, another tip. Sometimes where you're in a production, somebody asks you for a wireless headphone. And if you go around in the market, you will find out that there is no such thing as a wireless headphone. It doesn't exist. But it's easy to make. How do we make a wireless headphone? Aha! We take a set of wireless microphones, but the other way. Normally, this is in the speaker, and this is in the camera. So we switch them around, and we put the transmitter in the camera, and instead of the microphone, we put a line to the output of the headphones. And this transmits to this that originally was in the camera, now is in the hands of the guy that wants to listen, and we put the earphones here. Sounds super simple. The only thing is that you have to have an extra pair of wireless microphones. That's only what it takes. So this is a good tip. I hope you have enjoyed the class, and see you on the next lesson.